Hey, what's going on? My name's Andrew. You can call me Pooch. I'd like to welcome you to my cooking channel. No. We're not turning into a cooking channel, but we are answering a very interesting question, or at least one that I've been very interested in, and that is, what exactly are Fuji recipes? And I thought, well, I gotta cook anyway tonight, so why don't we just incorporate the recipes and the topic and, you know, have it be super on the nose. So, I'm sorry for this pun. Let's get cooking. Okay, so what if I told you there's a way to limit your post-production workflow and time by adjusting settings within your camera body? Would you be interested? Okay, now, what if I told you that the only con was that you could only shoot in JPEG if you did this? Still with me? Okay, so here's the cherry on top. What if I told you that those settings you adjusted to limit the time in your post-processing also looked like old film stock? Yeah, I thought you'd be interested. That is essentially what a Fuji recipe is in like layman's terms. Now, if you're somewhat familiar with Fuji, then you know about their built-in presets like Astia and Kodachrome, and the list goes on and on. Think of those base presets as the building blocks to what could be greater recipes. Or, you know, if we're gonna keep running with the cooking analogy, think of the base presets as like your core ingredients, your main thing. So tonight it's ramen. Yeah, but what about all the other stuff that goes into it? That is, in my mind, the best way I know how to describe the fine tweaks, the little things that make this recipe into a super delicious, juicy photo and dinner. So you might be wondering, like, how much do these emulations cost? Because, you know, if we're getting access to super old, epic analog film stocks, surely either people are gonna like hoard that and keep it really safe and private, or they're gonna charge a crazy amount for it. Well, guess what? It's free. Yeah, but no, seriously, that's right. It's all free. Places like Fuji Weekly is actually where I got my emulations and recipes, but you can get them really anywhere. And it's really cool because on Fuji Weekly, there's even a forum for user recipes, which is just awesome. You know, this might be a little controversial, but it definitely feels like the Fuji community is the least toxic of all the photo communities. But that is a different video for a different day. So I really feel like we should just go ahead and dive into the recipes. Everything was taken this morning, and we're gonna go through about 3 to 4 different presets. So I hope you enjoy. Let me get to my cooking while we look at these photos together. All right, let's go through some Fuji recipes. The very first one that caught my eye on Fuji Weekly's page was the Cineteal Recipe. It seems like Richie was trying to go for a Kodak Vision 3 500T recipe. A quick Google search on what that is exactly is simply just a really dramatic, dynamic Kodak film. People really relate to it in terms of like cinema. They say that it reminds them of cinematic quality images. Richie does say that this specific recipe looks better at like blue hour, and obviously I was not shooting at that time of day. It was pretty early in the morning actually, and so it actually shows a little bit in my photos. I will link every single recipe that I used down below. So looking at this first image, I definitely get the nice rich blues in the shadows. Definitely. You can also see the skin tone is very warm. It's got that orange quality that we've come to know with that Cineteal style of, photography. The second photo here, it's even more abundant. I really love the light off of Dalton's face. Again, we've got really rich orange skin tones with the cool blues in the shadows. It's a very, this is a very dynamic look straight out of camera. I have not done any editing to this. On to the next photo. This is where you can kind of see that maybe the golden hour, early morning wasn't the best time for this specific recipe. It just kind of gets overpowered. You lose a lot of the teals that you would come to expect with a Cineteal recipe. Overall, I like this one. I think that I will go back and change the white balance to be more reflective of the true Cineteal style. I kept my white balance neutral because I just wanted to see what it would look like naturally. But I think if I went out and took photos with it again, I would totally change the white balance. All right, moving on to the next recipe and the next photo. For this, we're using the Fuji Superia 800 recipe. I love the washed out tones that came
with this recipe. I just think it looks beautiful. Looking at this next picture, I think what this recipe does really well is just help soften those midtones and highlights and really keeps them smooth across the board while lifting up the warm orange and yellow tones in the skin. I mean, I'm just loving this photo. This next photo is a little overexposed, but I wanted to push it because I wanted to see some of that natural grain come through. I actually adjusted a setting that increases the grain, and that was recommended for this recipe. You can see it here again, same location. I did lower the exposure a little bit. And God, I really love these. They just turned out so good. And last but not least, this one actually might be my favorite photo from the set. If you were to tell me that this photo was shot on my film camera, I would believe you. Just look at that thing. All right, moving on to the next photo and next recipe. We're looking at the Kodak Tri-x400. Dalton is actually a really good model. I don't know if I introduced you. Dalton is my good friend. We shoot together a lot. We've worked on a couple projects together. He's a young gun, but he's incredibly talented. He's got a great social media presence. Go check him out at the very best. I've talked about shooting in black and white before. I don't love doing it, but now that I have this option through this recipe, I think they turned out really great. I love the roll off from the highlights into those midtones. And it gives me that awesome contrast that I've wanted in black and white photos, right? The skies and the lights just being very blown out, but then those shadows in those midtones, those grays are just like really, they look like thick, you know, but without losing any detail. I love that. Here I am shooting into some glass and some reflections. And again, I'm just really happy with this recipe. For me, because I don't shoot in black and white a lot, I often tend to kind of screw up the detail in my blacks and my shadows. But with this recipe, I am not having that problem. It looks killer. All right, and for my last recipe, we're working with Kodachrome 64. Apparently this one has been one of the most requested, and Richie over at Fuji Weekly has actually made this as an updated version of his original recipe. Already, this just feels like film to me. The greens look right, like nice and soft, a little desaturated, a lot of blues in the shadows. Again, skin tones are popping. They're looking so orange, so warm. You can't go wrong with it. Here's Dalton being a great model. Again, I wanted to see the contrast between his skin tones and the greens of the leaves, and obviously it pops. It pops. It really does. Here he is again. This time we went with a little bit more dramatic, more stylized photo, had the light directly shining on him. And this was actually taken at a trolley stop, and it just worked perfectly. Again, utilizing greens with this recipe was really important to me, and I think it paid off. And here's the last photo of the set. And the reason why I chose this is because I had a little bit of everything in it. Look at the sky and look at the blues. Look at the greens. Look at the grays to blacks, right? And look at his skin tones. This recipe really does a great job with a lot of different ranges of color in one photo. Here's the deal. If you're gonna ask me which is my favorite, I don't fully know. All I know is that being able to change things in my camera to produce recipes that emulate these film stocks, I'm really happy. You know, this actually got me thinking as I was shooting this. If you guys are Fuji shooters and you want to be a part of next month's monthly photo roundup, use some of these recipes and submit them to me, because I think that would be awesome. All right, it's time to put a bow on this video, wrap things up, finish up the recipes, and finish the cooking in the kitchen. Okay, see you there.
So if someone asked you, hey, what are Fuji recipes? Would you be able to clearly tell them what they are? I really hope so. And I hope this video helped inspire you and get you excited about maybe trying some of your own recipes out, going to Fuji Weekly, and just pushing your camera and pushing yourself a little bit harder, a little bit further. One thing that you may notice if you go and use the recipes that I use is that the white balance is gonna be a little bit different. And that's because I chose to keep my white balance more neutral, natural. If you're excited to go try something out, but you wanna do something your own way, I feel like that's the whole point. So I wanna encourage you, if you feel maybe even intimidated that like, hey, if I do all of these settings and I do all these changes, I might not know how to take good photos, that's totally fine. Do what you need to do. I really liked how the photos turned out, and I hope that you did as well. And that, my friends, is a wrap on today's video. Kind of a weird format, right? Let me know what you guys think. This idea came to me at like 12 this afternoon. I thought, let me go for it. So it obviously made cooking a lot harder than it needed to be, and it's gonna make cleanup a lot more difficult as well. But overall, I had fun, and I kind of felt a little less lonely doing my everyday chores and making a YouTube video. And you know what? If you wanna feel less lonely on your creative journey, then I'd recommend leaving a like, dropping a comment, and ultimately subscribing to the channel so we can be creative together and feel less lonely. All right, y'all, I'm sweating. We got about like 20 more minutes left before dinner's ready. Brittany will be home any minute now. So I'm gonna get out of here. Peace!